Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday morning, March the 5th. We have a powerful storm system over the western Great Lakes. It is causing blizzard conditions across parts of the nation, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, for example, and it has a good chance of producing strong to severe thunderstorms later on today into early tonight in the I-95 corridor region, D.C., Philadelphia, maybe even as far north as New York City. There's a strong cold front that is sliding from west to east, and it will be one of the culprits for the severe thunderstorm possibility later today and tonight. The main risk in the I-95 corridor region and much of the Mid-Atlantic region will be for damaging wind gusts, but certainly isolated tornadoes also on the table. Here's a look at the latest radar loop from weatherunderground.com using WSI's IntelliCast, and it gives you the nationwide look, and here is that rotation with that surface low, very deep surface low, on the order of about 980 millibars. That is kind of equivalent to about a Category 1 or Category 2 hurricane, centered right over maybe the southeastern part of Wisconsin early this morning, producing some significant snow in the cold sector to the north and west of that surface low. And again, blizzard conditions with 55, 60 mile per hour winds in this area from Iowa across eastern part of Minnesota into the upper part of Wisconsin. Snow, yes, accumulating snow, but probably the biggest factor here will be those winds, again, causing a lot of blowing and drifting. You don't need a lot of snow to produce blizzard conditions with that blowing and drifting snow, and against very, very strong wind gusts, 55, even 60 miles per hour there. Now, we can see out ahead in the warm sector, we have a cold frontal system sliding to the east. This produced a lot of severe weather late yesterday into last night across the lower Mississippi Valley region. In fact, we'll take a look in a moment at the storm reports, primarily damaging wind gusts, which is what I was talking about yesterday. The highest risk for the severe weather parameter was for damaging wind gusts. Isolated tornadoes, yes, unconfirmed reports of as many as 5 or 6 in the lower Mississippi Valley region yesterday. Similar situation today. I think the biggest risk is for damaging wind gusts, but there will be some isolated tornadoes as well in the Mid-Atlantic region, primarily, not only the Mid-Atlantic, but down to the southeastern U.S. coastline. And again, primarily that tornado threat will be from Pennsylvania, Maryland border down all the way to the southeastern coast of South Carolina and Georgia. But a very healthy looking system here, impacting much of the eastern part of the nation. Well, here's a look at the current weather warnings map from NOAA. Not much right now at all in the Mid-Atlantic region. I do believe that they will issue severe thunderstorm watches and warnings later on today into tonight in much of the Mid-Atlantic region. Again, the best chance for the strong to severe thunderstorm activity in the I-95 corridor region, for example, anytime from, let's say, early afternoon into the early evening hours. So don't be surprised at all if severe thunderstorm watches, certainly even wind advisories, can be posted throughout the Mid-Atlantic region later today into tonight, and all the way down again to the southeastern U.S. coastline. Now here's the blizzard area right here, and all this orange here represents actual blizzard warnings right now, and very, very strong winds of 55, 60 miles per hour in the cold sector with snow falling, southern Minnesota, much of Iowa. It extends all the way into the upper part of Wisconsin. That surface low right about this area right here. This is the warm sector, and this is the cold sector, and here again are where those blizzard warnings are currently in effect. Well, we mentioned in yesterday's video that the highest risk was for damaging wind gusts. I did not expect a widespread tornado outbreak, and indeed that is what took place. Most severe weather reports were with respect to damaging wind gusts. What you can see here, the red right here are those tornadoes, and there are 7, let me clear that here, I kind of messed that up. There are 7 unconfirmed reports of tornadoes, and you can see scattered about here, but the primary severe weather reports from yesterday include those damaging wind gusts right here In this particular case, over 180 damaging wind reports here in the lower Mississippi Valley region, extending all the way into the Tennessee Valley. I expect similar results today, with mainly damaging wind reports. Actually, that'll extend all the way down into the southeastern U.S. And yes, there can be isolated tornadoes, but again, the scenario as yesterday is not quite conducive to widespread tornado outbreak, but instead, watch out for those damaging wind gusts. And certainly there can be hail as well in any afternoon or evening thunderstorm today in those eastern states. And here's NOAA's outlook for severe weather. The probability of severe weather enhanced across the southeastern part of Virginia, much of the eastern Carolinas, all the way down to the southeastern part of South Carolina. And really the threat for severe weather today extends all the way down into northern Florida from the mid-Atlantic region. The best chance of any tornadic activity generally south of the Mason-Dixon line, Delmarva Peninsula, for example, on down south. And again, an enhanced risk for severe weather later today and tonight in much of the eastern part of the Carolinas, southeastern Virginia. Well, let's walk through a couple of the reasons why I expect severe thunderstorms later today into early tonight across much of the eastern U.S. Some of the culprits involved here. First of all, a very, very strong low-level wind scenario here. What you're seeing here are the wind speeds on this scale in knots at about 5,000 feet off the surface, off the ground level, 850 millibar level. Very, very strong winds here in the lower part of the atmosphere. You can see the scale right here, purple, 64 knots on above. So this is as much as 70, 80 knot winds in the lower part of the atmosphere as we begin the day here on Wednesday. You go out a little bit farther in time here, and we're moving along on an hourly basis here all the way into the early part of the afternoon. This is 1 p.m. now. Very, very strong winds here, an extended area from western New York all the way through much of Pennsylvania, all the way down into the Carolinas. And again, this is one of the concerns here for damaging wind gusts later today into early tonight. You have winds like this at 70, 80 knots, just 5,000 feet off the ground. Any kind of a thunderstorm can produce mixing that brings some of those very strong winds aloft down to the surface level or the ground level. And again, anytime really from mid-afternoon, early afternoon on, that threat for some damaging wind gusts will be on the table in much of the eastern part of the nation. We go out a little farther in time, and certainly that threat continues through much of the afternoon. Here we are into the early evening hours, and that low-level jet still very, very strong from interior New York State and interior New England all the way down along the eastern seaboard down to the outer banks of North Carolina. Now, another contributing factor here to the severe weather threat for later today and tonight in much of the east, vorticity field. This is an area of vorticity maxima is an area of rotation in the upper part of the atmosphere, usually associated with very strong winds in the upper part of the atmosphere. And that tends to lead to enhanced upward motion down at the surface level. You can see kind of a centered area here. And by the way, we're using this high resolution model of the NAM, the 3-kilometer resolution model for these particular maps, both the last set of maps, this set of maps, and the next set of maps, by the way, high resolution model here. And we have a very strong upper level system here centered over the Midwest, and that vorticity, those spikes of vorticity just slide from west to east into the I-95 corridor region, and all this enhances upward motion later today in this part of the nation. This is enhanced upward motion with that vorticity field moving overhead, excuse me here, and combine that with those very, very strong low-level winds at 5,000 feet, and you have the recipe for damaging wind gusts, maybe even isolated tornadoes as well. Let's clear the deck here and go out a little bit farther in time into the overnight hours, and all that slides off to the off the eastern seaboard by later on tonight into tomorrow morning. On the backside, very strong winds on the backside in the cold sector of that storm system. By this time in the mid-Atlantic region on Thursday, expect wind gusts 45 miles per hour or so during the day on Thursday, and it certainly turns cooler than what will be the case today, where temperatures could go easily up into the 60s in many parts of that DC-Philadelphia corridor. Well, let's wrap up with a kind of a focus view of the northeastern part of the nation. We're looking at the radar reflectivities now, again using that high resolution NAM model here. It's a 3-kilometer resolution here, and I want to point out the likely development of a squall line by the early to mid-afternoon hours here. We can already see it here early this morning here. This is by mid-morning, continue to move into the midday now. This is now early afternoon. You can really see this starting to set up here from upstate Pennsylvania, maybe more of a broken squall line up here, or more of a solid line of severe thunderstorms, potentially severe thunderstorms here by mid-afternoon, and that continues to develop here and intensify. And by the time we get to the late afternoon here, you have a very impressive squall line extending from upstate Pennsylvania all the way to just east of the DC metro region and all the way down into southeastern Virginia, the eastern part of the Carolinas. Again, remember, there can be isolated tornadoes associated with it, but the most likely risk is for damaging wind gusts associated with this squall line. Now, there will be a second line that tries to form kind of with that upper level trough or even the surface cold frontal system. A second line will try to form. It has less of a chance of becoming all that powerful because of the strength of this first line here. That'll kind of sap some of the energy out of the atmosphere, but don't be surprised if there is indeed, as this high-resolution model forecast suggests, a second line that tries to form, again with some showers and thunderstorms. But this first line here, this squall line, the more solid squall line, is the one of real concern here. Again, mid-afternoon, late afternoon time frame here. We'll go out a little farther in time, and here it's reaching eastern Pennsylvania, the Delmarva Peninsula, here by the early evening hours, 6, 7 p.m. Again, there can be a second line that tries to form, but it is going to run into a little bit more of a stable atmosphere on the heels of the passage of this squall line right here. We'll go out a little farther in time, and indeed that tends to fall apart as it runs into a more stable atmosphere. We get into the overnight hours, and much of this moves off the coast. And there's enough cold air on the backside to produce some snow shower, some lake effect snow shower activity by late tonight, early tomorrow morning across the eastern Great Lakes and much of the Ohio Valley region and those western mountains of the Appalachians of West Virginia, western part of Pennsylvania. So a lot going on here over the next 12 to 24 hours or so. The possibility, strong to severe thunderstorms later today into tonight across much of the Mid-Atlantic region, and that threat extends all the way down to the southeastern U.S. coastline. For ArcfieldWeather.com, this has been meteorologist Paul Dorian.